Hi and welcome to Great Expectations. As parents, there are many things we can do for our children, all worthwhile, but there's little more important than helping them to develop a strong sense of their own ability and uniqueness. Raising a confident child is giving them an incredible head start in life, and we're going to help you with this today. And we have an amazing panel of guests with us: education specialist and educational psychologist intern Mommy Metsing, self-esteem facilitator Lisa Sack, and remedial therapist and educational psychologist Sunita Patel. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us on Great Expectations. Lisa, first let's establish, what is a confident child? How do you identify a confident child?
Confident children would be children who are comfortable with themselves. And so you would see that these children would be able to interact with their world in a very different way to, for example, a non-confident child. They're going to be able to connect with others. They're going to be able to take risks, try new things, and certainly voice themselves. So a confident child would be a child who's able to say, this is what I need, or this is what I'm feeling. Remember that a confident child doesn't necessarily mean a loud,
yes, that's what's going to be my next
hugely
question.
Sociable, outgoing, center of attention child. That's not necessary.
That might be the opposite, actually.
Absolutely. What we're looking for is that level of, I'm okay. I'm okay with who I am, with what I do. I'm able to withstand perhaps criticism from others. You know, children criticize each other, they call each other names. And a confident child would be able to hear that and be okay. They might be a little bit hurt for a while, but they would be able to come back from that feeling okay about themselves.
Wish we had that ability ourselves. Now, why is it so important for a child? And we might ask, a child is a child, just let them be. But why is it so important that a child is confident and has good self-esteem?
Yuveka, self-esteem is really the foundation of our emotional health. And so as children, we need to develop all the emotional skills, the EQ, as well as other skills that we're going to take with us as we grow up into adolescence and adulthood. So it's important for their future, but it's also important for their happiness as children.
I'm so glad you explained what EQ is, emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't know what that was when people talk about it all this time. Where would you get confidence and self-esteem from?
You know, some children are born and they grow up with a more natural confidence. We do see that. Children who just have it in them, and then other children who need to be encouraged so much more. But really, at its core, parents. Parents as well as other important people in the child's life. So we could be talking about other caregivers, friends at school, teachers, things like that. Parents, obviously, or primary caregivers being the main influence. Parents give their children information about themselves. They model certain types of behavior and communication. And so really, children learn who they are through the feedback that they get from their parents, especially as when they're very young.
Right. So mostly from the people around them that would be the key.
Absolutely.
To where they absorb these things from.
Remember that as children grow up, they're exposed to a bigger and bigger world, and then that starts to have an influence.
Well, let's look at some other links now, Sunita. And what is the link between confidence and self-esteem and gaining independence as a child and being an independent child?
Well, they definitely overlap, Yuveka. If you think of parents these days, they're constantly wanting to do things for their kids, you know. Sometimes for time constraints, let me just put on your shoes quickly, we need to go.
Yes.
Or you're going to drop...
Guilty.
You're going to drop the juice, let me pour it for you, you're going to make a mess. You know, we're always in such a hurry.
We're always preventative.
That's it, you know. And if you go back and think about the first time that you did something, you accomplished something on your own, that sense of accomplishment that you got, you know, that's what independence and self-esteem, that's the link between it. If you allow your kids to try something, yes, they might make a mess initially and try again, and it keeps getting better, but that sense of accomplishment that you're giving them, they're more open to challenges, new challenges. I can do this. I have that faith in myself.
So where you think that you're actually being a help, you're actually a hindrance.
Sometimes
to the process.
Yes,
sometimes.
you have to look at safety and things like that as well. But let your child try certain things. You know, if they're not hurting themselves, let them try. It's okay. The mess,
Mess
It's
is okay. All right,
Yes.
in this whole process. Mommy, how does a parent's role modeling assist in developing all of this in a child and developing a child's confidence and self-esteem? How do we do that as parents?
Remember, Aveka, the parent is the first teacher for the child.
Yes.
And at home, this is where the very first world of a child that begins. Meaning, if we as parents, we don't model the behavior, it's going to be difficult for the child then to can be able to come out and be as confident as we would want them to be. So as parents, we must be able to say, you know what, this is how we behave, and then take it forward. The children will obviously learn from the parents.
Now, a lot of moms might be wondering, but how do I know the line between a child who is confident and independent and able to ask and an outspoken child?
It's very important to distinguish the two, because as a self-confident child, they are able to step out their little comfort zone and explore. But then if we a loud child might not necessarily be confident. So it's important to differentiate the two, to say, okay, my child is loud, but is she able to go on, take step by step and explore the world? So that's.
So is she loud with good reason?
Come again?
Is she loud with good reason? That would be the question.
Probably that would be.
Sunita, if we have to look at the link between confidence and self-esteem problems and a child acting out where you can see that there's something wrong, how would we make that link?
You would see problems like that in peer pressure. You know, if the child, self-esteem is basically being okay with who I am. Okay, being okay with my decision. This is how I feel, and it's okay. Children who don't do that tend to follow others. Okay, so they're more prone to things like peer pressure. That's why they would get into bad behaviors. They would get into trouble a lot more for things like that. Also, they wouldn't try as hard at school because they just don't think it's worth it. You know, I'm not worth it. So they wouldn't try as hard. They wouldn't push themselves.
So
as
a
hard.
lack of self-confidence and self-esteem leads to these kinds of problems, leads to problems,
yes.
to behavioral problems.
Definitely.
And just give us a few more examples, just so moms out there will be able to identify these.
Okay, we mentioned the peer pressure. Okay, at
and
all
problems
stages.
with schoolwork.
Yes.
And ways they might act out at home. Lisa, you probably have a few more explanations on that one for us as well from your experience.
I think certainly one would see anxiety and fear in the child. A child who is not confident doesn't necessarily trust himself to, as Mommy said, to step out of his comfort zone. So there would be fear and anxiety around perhaps new challenges or even just day-to-day fear and anxiety. Shyness is a difficult one because it's a label that a lot of parents give their children, and it's important to distinguish, is my child happy to spend time alone? Is my child more of an introvert, or is my child in fact avoiding contact with others and avoiding stepping out because he's not confident?
Okay, because I know my little one sometimes wants to be on her own and she's quiet and she doesn't even want me around, and there are times where she does want you around. So it can get a bit confusing, but it helps to be able to identify.
Absolutely.
And if she's alone, don't take it personally. She wants to be alone and have that space, so she's confident. Is
Exactly,
she confident? Wonderful.
exactly. I think time alone is so important in terms of independence. A child who's never on their own doesn't learn how to be on their own. And how can one be independent?
Okay, so no need to worry in that scenario. Well, I'm pretty sure that all of our experts will agree that as mums, we need to take a good look at our own sense of self before we even begin to develop our child's self-esteem. That's coming up next. Hi, you're with us on Great Expectations. When you become a mother, you're forced to hold up a mirror because, well, our little ones have an annoyingly effective way of making us look at what makes us tick. So if you have a child lacking in confidence, before you rush off to the play therapist, sit back and ask yourself some hard questions. And what should these questions be? Well, self-esteem facilitator Lisa Sack and educational psychologist Sunita Patel are now joined by wellness coach and mum, Sister Colleen McClintock-Rudnick, to guide us on this. And I think we first need to establish, Lisa, how is mum a mirror for her child?
Children see so much that we don't think that they see, and they are consistently aware of what mom is doing. And so it's really important for moms to be conscious of what they reflect to their children, to reflect back to children positive things that they see in their children, and also to reflect back things that children communicate to parents, so that mom can ensure that the that the child feels heard, that the child feels important. If a child says, Mom, I'm feeling sad, and Mom just goes off on the rest of her day, the child doesn't feel heard. So to reflect back what the child is saying. I think it's also important in terms of a mirror that children learn not to take on their parents' stuff.
Yes.
And so not to see themselves as, for example, Mom sees herself when she looks in the mirror and says, don't like what I see, that moms don't pass that sort of things on to their children.
Well, linked to that then, can a mom with low self-esteem raise a confident child or teach a child how to be confident?
It becomes such a challenge because part of helping children to develop self-esteem is certainly conscious teaching. Taking the time to let the child know how to build their self-esteem when they're older, and certainly taking steps using tools to build self-esteem when they're younger. Very important. But the other hugely important aspect is modeling, that children do what they see.
Yes.
And so a mom with low self-esteem might have certain behaviors, certain ways of communicating, say certain things. For example, a mom with low self-esteem might burn the chicken for dinner and say to herself out loud, oh, I'm such an idiot, I burned the chicken.
Or mummy's silly.
Or
I
mummy's
say
silly.
that. I say, oh, mummy's so silly, look, but is that the wrong thing to say?
Well, what is the child learning? That it's
You can't make
okay
a
to
mistake.
call oneself silly, and that a mistake defines one as silly. So the child learns that kind of self-talk. And that's not what we want children to learn.
So how would I know then? What are the questions I need to ask myself as a mom?
I think the first really important thing to become conscious of is, what are the things that I say to myself? Self-talk is a huge indicator of our self-esteem. Am I very critical of myself? Do I do something and then call myself something like an idiot? Those sorts of words that are very undermining. So self-talk is a great indicator. Certainly, I would say for a mom to be aware of how she feels about herself in situations or in general. Does she feel inadequate at times? Does she feel useless, worthless? If those are feelings that a mom is having, then it means her self-esteem needs to be
So don't stand in
addressed.
front of the mirror going, oh, look at this, or look at that saggy bit, or mommy's tummy so huge. Don't do that in front of your child.
Definitely
No.
not. And the thing is that although that might be something you consciously don't do, there might be other things that slip out that you're not aware of. And that's what the children pick up on. And that's why it's so important for moms to authentically live with self-esteem, because if they fake it when their children are around, it's first of all very hard to keep up,
And they will pick
second
it
of
up at some
all,
point.
there's going to be things that leak out.
Well, back to that sort of analogy of looking in front of, standing in front of the mirror, Colleen, and what you should do and shouldn't do. Is there a link between self-esteem and body image, especially for a child?
I think there's a massive link. I think they inform each other, because really it's all around what are the perceptions. What perceptions do we have about ourselves? So where do we get that feedback, as Lisa spoke about earlier? What informs us? Of am I physically okay, which is my body image, and my self-esteem, are they all working together and I'm okay?
And how do people see me, I think, is probably
Yes.
what comes
And
out of there. Now, you have a personal experience,
Yes.
which I'd like to ask you about. As a child,
Right.
you had a little bit of a battle to fight. Tell us about that.
Well, I was an overweight child, so grew up an overweight child, an overweight teenager, and a very overweight adult.
Very hard to believe, first, let me say.
Thank you. So in the end, ended up losing 40 kilograms. So I was morbidly obese.
40 kilograms?
Yes. So it's been a long journey, and I think even self-esteem is not an event. I think sometimes we feel a bit that we have to be perfect as mothers, and we can't. We also need to share with our children that we're working on issues, and that it's okay if we still got a way to go, as long as we realize we have to learn and we have to develop ourselves.
And how has the media affected all of this, especially with our kids? And I mean, I know I have friends with kids as young as 5 saying, you know what, oh, I'm fat, or you know, I'm looking fat, or do I look fat in this? How's the media, or what has the media done to
Well,
sort of
I
make this
think-
a bigger problem?
I think that we live in a world that worships physical beauty. And I think that the media is just one of the platforms. And our children, we were speaking earlier, I think our children are under a lot more pressure than we were. There's Facebook, there's BBM, and it's got to be your profile pic, and
Yes.
how does your pic look? And so
And just to look at some examples while you're there on pics, I mean, we always feel when we're taking a picture of our child, oh, get your hair out of your face, or let's be, some people even powder their little girls up, or, you know, should we not just take a picture of our child with a bit of something, you know, dribbling out of her lips or out of her mouth? Should we not take those untidy pictures to say it's okay to be that way sometimes?
I think we're sending signals that you have to be this Barbie doll.
Perfect all the time.
Perfect. You know, the makeup must be in the exact way that it's got to be. And so I think the more we role model that we're comfortable with our bodies, I think the more children will respond to that. But they're under a lot of pressure, peer pressure. They have to wear the right brand and they have to be the right size. And even then it's sometimes not enough.
So how do we then sort of draw the line, or where do we know where the line is between teaching your child neatness and grooming and just sort of basically looking after yourself and your health, and then overdoing it so that they have these issues at the end of it all?
I think there's some warning bells. I think that you're talking about a perfectionistic child also that's going to, you know, the drama when they're getting dressed and they go through 3 outfits and it's not good enough, and there's that perfectionist element. And I think all of this that we're talking about today speaks of having an open home where we can discuss these topics, even with the media. I did a bit of a survey last night with my daughters, and I said, so when you see these pictures of these beautiful models, what do you think? Does it make you feel bad? And my 11-year-old said, no, Mommy, I know that's not real. So I think talking about it and educating them that, yes, there is this world out there, the celebrity world, but that isn't
It's wonderful.
real.
It's wonderful that they know that. How old is your little girl?
This is the 11-year-old.
11-year-old. Okay.
Yes.
So that age, it's great. It's great that she knows that that's not real. How do we address these issues with a child who is maybe a little more on the plumper side, if I had to put it that way? How do we let them know, look, it's okay, and you know, if this is an issue, we can work through it, and love yourself?
So this is my passion that you're talking about, especially because of my own journey. And I don't think there's a one-sentence answer to it. It's very tricky because sometimes mothers want to fix those daughters. And I think Lisa spoke earlier about that children know exactly what's going on and they want to feel unconditionally loved by you. And that's how self-esteem begins, that if you try your best and you're unconditionally loved by your parent. So when I start talking about your body as a child, I'm getting a bit confused now. Do you love me or don't you love me? Or will you only love me when I've lost 5 kilograms?
Yes, that's important. Yeah.
So I think it's about value system. What do we value in our family? Do we value thinness? Is that what we value? Or do we value health?
Health. And
I think there's a nice way, Lisa also spoke about working with the parent more than the child. So when I work with an overweight child, I try to work with the parent first and look at how they're leaking or infecting the child with their own body image issues.
Sunita, it sounds to me, and like I said to Colleen, I wouldn't have said that she had an issue as a child, and she's so confident. She seems to have worked through this. How does a mum start to deal with her own self-esteem and childhood issues so that she can heal herself and then raise this wholesome human being?
I think if we work on the principle of take the best, discard the rest, you know.
Take the best, discard the rest.
Yep.
Okay.
Make a list of what positively, what your parents did to positively influence your self-image, and make a list of the things that negatively influenced your self-image, and find a balance between the two. You know, you don't have to constantly do things right all the time. I mean, you just need to be the best that you can be. Not blaming our parents, obviously, going
Which
back.
we do a lot.
They did the best that they could do at that point, you know. But going forward, make the distinction. When my mom said this, when she criticized me this way, or when she kept saying, fix your hair, fix your hair, fix your hair, or something, it hurt me, you know. And think about what you're going to do to your child by doing that as well, you know, and step away from that and say, but you know, when mom told me, well done for my spelling test, that really made me feel awesome, you know, and do that to your child, because chances are your child's going to feel awesome when you tell them that as well.
And Sunita, when do you know that there's a problem and you actually need to seek out professional help?
I think, Yuvika, if it starts affecting your parenting skills, that's when you should definitely look for professional help.
All right then, right. You've sorted out your own confidence issues. How and when do you start building your little one's self-esteem? Stay with us for the answer to that one. Hi again. Today on Great Expectations, we're helping you to raise a confident child. Trust, faith, belief, these are all part and parcel of confidence. So it makes sense that the first step to building your child's self-esteem is to earn their trust and then make them believe in themselves. To tell us how to do this, we're rejoined by educational psychologist intern Mommy Metsing. Mommy is also an educational specialist who assists others with tools to resolve child behavioral problems in schools. Remedial therapist and educational psychologist Sunita Patel and self-esteem facilitator Lisa Sack are also still with us. Now, Sunita, the first 2 years are important to build self-esteem. Why that early on? Why is that stage so important?
In the first 2 years, Yuveka, the child's brain is growing very fast. And what happens is they start to develop mental associations, patterns of association, mental ways of the way things work, you know. So, okay, I cry or I'm upset and mommy comes and she picks me up, you know, it happens once. The more consistent this behavior is, the deeper these mental models are like ingrained into the child's brain.
So they start to think this is the way it should be.
Yes, they start expecting this, and as life goes on, they expect people to think of them as worthwhile, and I expect respect from someone else.
So can you, can you take this all the way back to birth, and how do you instill confidence and self-esteem from the time your baby's born?
Definitely, because I mean that's where it all starts, the first 2 years, you know. Baby cries and mommy goes and picks the child up. Think about a time when you were treated like a princess for a day, you know, and you were doted upon. You felt very special, you know, and that's how this child is being felt as well, that I'm worthwhile for mommy to come and pick me up and carry me. And yeah.
But does that not pose other problems then in terms of independence and the whole link we spoke about, self-confidence and independence, and not sort of hovering around your children too much?
I think you need to draw the line in terms of arrogance and then confidence, you know. Arrogance is a child who thinks that everyone has to respect them and think of them as they're the best. Whereas a confident child is someone who is okay with the way they are. They look at their strengths and their weaknesses, you know. They look at themselves and say, I'm not flawless, I do have weaknesses, but I'm okay with that.
Attachment parenting is a phrase. Now, I'm not quite sure what that is. Explain to us what attachment parenting is and how it relates to this issue.
Basically, attachment parenting is a style of parenting where parents make their child feel loved. They make the child feel valuable, secure, and safe. You know, and that's the like building blocks to create a child.
And how would you do that? Is that what we were talking about?
Yes, exactly. In terms of consistency, responding to your child when they need you.
And what if a mum didn't get the chance to bond with their child very well at birth? I mean, you know, we know a lot of mums do battle with this in the first few months. Attachment parenting is not part of those first few months. How does that affect the entire mix?
Yuveka, children are resilient, and it's never too late to start attachment parenting with your child.
Okay, so you can start it at a later stage.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Mommy, in your experience, is there a danger with attachment parenting and how it affects this process of building confidence and self-esteem, and overindulging your child, being there too much?
I think it's very dangerous to over-parent your child. You deny your child an opportunity to learn.
And grow.
You deny your child an opportunity to master things for themselves. Therefore, they tend to lack independence and rather depend on the mother to always do things for them. Therefore, they lack confidence. So it's important as mothers to say, you know what, it might be tough, but just let go.
Is there a problem that you might go the other extreme and then push your child to be too independent in this entire process?
Both extremes are a challenge in terms of if you let the child at an early stage where the child is not ready to do that, it can also hamper the confidence of the child. So as a mother, you need to be aware all the time, know your child, give them baby steps to say, okay, take one step and make sure that you are there as a mother, the guider, the protector.
At a safe distance.
At a safe distance, so that should anything happen, you say, my kid, I'm here. So as and when the child explores their world, they would know that I've got somebody next to me, but you let go slow by slow.
Sort of like being in a circus and having the trapeze and the net. Well, it sounds like a balancing act, Lisa, and I think let's just talk a little bit more about how we strike that balance and we get that balance right, about helping them do this, but also not making them too independent in the process.
I think, as Mommy said, it's so important to get to know your child so that you're aware of what they can and what they can't do. Children need opportunities to try things out, because as they try things out and they learn that they can do it, so they feel competent, they believe that they can, and they learn to trust themselves. Of course, we don't want to put a child in a situation where we set them up for failure. So we don't want to ask a child to do something that is not age appropriate, that they're not
Give us some
able
examples.
to do.
What would be a scenario there? How would you be setting them up?
Let's say, for example, a child is unable to carry their own cup. You know that they're going to spill their juice and it's going to make a mess. And so a parent who at that point says, now it's time you carry your own cup. You're old enough, carry your own cup. And the child is unable to do that, they experience failure, they experience a sense of incompetence. I can't do what's expected of me, I'm not good enough.
Is it the wording, is it what you say, or is it the actual pushing them to do it at that stage?
It's both. It's absolutely both. Of course, one can't always know exactly when a child's ready to do something. So it's a balancing act, and I think parents need to learn to relax and trust their intuition. Let's say, for example, the parent thinks the child is ready to carry the cup.
Yeah.
It's important to say to the child, I'd like you to carry your cup. And if the child spills, that there's no criticism, there's no blaming, that there's now a plan for cleaning up the mess that the child is involved in. Because that teaches a child that mistakes are okay, but we need to take responsibility for what comes next. It's not that when I spill, mommy cleans it up.
Okay, so and staying with examples, Mommy, I'd like you to maybe just guide us through this one. When do we let our child go into the tea room, for example, to get a loaf of bread for us?
You start as early as possible. I would say 5 to 6 years old, they can be able to do certain things without you as a mom. So but of course, it depends on the development of the child and the readiness, the stage of readiness that your child is or at. So as a mother, you would know your child to say, okay, my child, but like I said before, a step, little by little, step by step. You send them to the kitchen. The next time you send them to the garage. The next time you extend this activity. The next time you send them to the shops. And it's just like that. So it's a process where you start small, the kitchen, maybe to the garage, the next into the shop, and it builds up on that.
As soon as they know to bring the right change back.
As long as
that would be important. Now, kids who are different in any way are so often targeted by bullies. Stay with us for a look at this issue after the break. Welcome back. Today on Great Expectations, we're giving you the tools to raise a confident child. Our experts are education specialist Mommy Mitsing, self-esteem facilitator Lisa Sack, educational psychologist and remedial therapist Sunita Patel, and wellness coach and mum sister Colleen McClintock-Rudnick. Now, Colleen knows all too well that the damage that can be caused by teasing, as she grew up being ridiculed for being fat, as we heard earlier on, Colleen. And we are going to chat a little bit more about teasing, but I want to hear from Lisa first about whether you're a special needs child, whether you are being bullied for a particular reason at school or not. Every child, I think there are basic tools to help them build self-esteem. And I think just give us some idea, some practical ideas of what this actually means.
Absolutely. I think it's important to know the goal in terms of building self-esteem in a more specific way, because it can be quite vague. So what parents are aiming to do is to help their child develop a belief that they can do things, that they can cope with their lives, that they can continue even if they don't get it right. And certainly that's about giving children opportunities to try things, as we spoke about earlier. It's also giving children a vocabulary so that they can specifically identify their own strengths. As they get older, it's important that they learn to identify them for themselves and give themselves this feedback. But when they're very little, it would be about the parent giving them specific feedback.
Give us some examples of that.
For example, a lot of parents are very general. Oh, what a good boy. Oh, what a gorgeous child. And that really doesn't give children any information about themselves. It would be around things like, look how your balance is improving.
Oh, so use specific things.
You are so helpful. You are so cooperative. Not, oh, thanks for getting that for mom. It's lovely to say that, and certainly appreciation is important, but it's so important for children to have specific words so they grow up.
So you can use big words like that, cooperative, and they'll know what you mean.
They might not know what it means, but
the more
you are
say it.
giving them a word. How else are they going to learn words? And so by saying you are helpful, and then you could say something like, you are cooperative, you listen and are happy to help me when I ask. So you give them the definition afterwards, in a sense.
All right, more examples I'd like to know from you, just for mums at home who will be trying this out this weekend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Children who, especially siblings, how about you are good at sharing? Something really important for them to hear. Other things that's really important, so what I was saying is you need to identify the goals of building self-esteem, what you're specifically doing. So the first is I can, and the other is that I deserve, that I'm worthwhile, that I'm valuable. And so when parents treat their children respectfully, and that's about hearing them. Now, hearing them is not necessarily doing whatever they want.
They say. That's
but
the
it's
problem.
about saying,
Yes.
I hear that that's what you want, but that's not what we're going to do right now. Or what you're saying is really important, but Dad and I need to finish this conversation and then I'll hear you.
Lisa, we spoke about giving your kiddies responsibilities. Now, does that mean you give your kiddies as young as 3, 4, 5 chores to do around the house?
Absolutely. First of all, it is part of being a family, so it creates that sense of belonging, that sense of everybody has a place in this family, which builds self-esteem. The other thing that's really important is that children get the opportunity to experience that they can do things. When parents do everything for their child, the child internalizes that as, Mom thinks I can't do it.
Yes.
And so the child learns, I'm incompetent. The more children believe in their own competence, the more confident they will be.
And I think it's important to say, let them do it even though they make a mess. And I think that's very important. Let them do it. Mommy, is there a danger of praising your child too much? Can you do that?
As long as the praise is genuine. Because you know what? When you praise your child by not being genuine, what messages are you sending to your child? And when the child leaves the home situation and they go out to the world, they will never get the praise that they have been given at home. So it's important to always be as genuine as you possibly can.
And they must know that they have to earn it.
They have to earn it. Praise doesn't just come like on a plate. You have to earn the praise as a child. They need to know that too.
Sunita, what is value by comparison and what are the dangers of that?
Value by comparison is when a child values themselves based on other people's perception of them. And that's obviously dangerous, because if others think of them as not clever or silly, or that's how they're going to view themselves. And that's obviously dangerous, because it's like leaving your self-confidence out in the open. You know, you never know who's going to come around, what kind of people are going to, and how they're going to view you, you know.
Colleen, I'm going to draw on your experience here, your personal experience, because you told us earlier about being bullied for being overweight when you were in school. Just tell us about what teasing actually does to a child and how it helps them define themselves and how you actually work through that.
So first of all, I think that there's not one person in the room that could say they've never been teased.
Yes.
I think it's really part of children learning to be resilient. So again, it goes back to forums where your children will give you feedback that this has happened. I think it's more important that they know to report it so that they can learn how to deal with it. But I think it's around, what do I value in myself? Understanding that not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. That's their choice if they don't like me. It doesn't mean that I'm going to devalue myself because this particular person doesn't like the shoes I'm wearing or doesn't feel that I'm tall enough.
And how do you make that okay for a child? How do you help them deal with something like that in their world?
I think you need to make it relevant, which is where I often do bring in my experience and say, you know, this is what people used to say about me when I was a little girl. They used to tease me about my weight, and then they'll go, really, Mommy, did they really do that? And normalizing it for them, that it's actually part of growing up. It's part of testing out a little bit. What is your brand out there? What do people think about you? And it's part of developing. And I'm not sure, I think it would be such a gift to learn this very, very young in life. And that is, you're not here to please everyone around you and to be liked by everyone around you. Because you will always actually be codependent then. You won't have your own personal anchor of who you are.
Wonderful advice then. Obviously speaking from personal advice, yes. So I mean from personal experience. And another thing that I think we need to touch on is disciplining your child and also reprimanding them in front of others. What does that do, Lisa, to their confidence and self-esteem? I mean, not to say that you don't discipline and reprimand your child, but how do you do it in a room full of other people at a dinner party, for example, that they don't get damaged by it?
I think the first thing that's really important with discipline is that the communication needs to be appropriate, not undermining. So often we discipline children by criticizing, by blaming and shaming, and that becomes very undermining to a child's self-esteem. Discipline needs to be assertive, where the actual behavior is addressed and not the child being bad. So the behavior is addressed as inappropriate. So that comes with communication. I think that the other really important thing is that there's boundaries, and these boundaries are consistent, so that children know what is expected of them. It helps them feel safe, it helps them know what is appropriate and what is not. Of course, children might still display inappropriate behavior, even
they
with
will
all
in a
of this
crowd.
in place. Absolutely. And I think it's about taking each situation as it comes. Be aware that children are people, and think to yourself, how would I feel if I was reprimanded in this group of people? What would be the effect on me? And then it would give you insight into what the effect on your child would be. And certainly, I always think about discipline, it's about remaining calm, which is not always easy. Taking a breath, remaining calm, not escalating the situation, and then perhaps removing the child from the situation and then dealing with the child.
Seeing as we want to very quickly just touch on a child with special needs, or a child that's different, if we want to put it that way, what are the top principles then for instilling confidence and self-esteem?
I think the same as with any child, that the child needs to know that they are valued for who they are. When parents spend really quality time with their children, when they play with their children, not I'm playing with you and I'm on my phone at the same time, but I'm playing with you, and then give the child feedback afterwards. I really enjoyed spending time with you, so that the child feels valued in that environment. Of course, we live in a world where differences are pointed out, and so again, I think as Colleen said earlier, it's about having an open forum within the home that it's discussed. It's not let's hide that difference and pretend it's not there. Let's talk about it. Let's prepare for what might happen when somebody teases you, and how could you handle that.
Wonderful.
And really important to emphasize for children that each person in the world is unique.
Okay, and instill that in them from a very, very young age. Lisa, thank you so much for that fabulous, fabulous advice today. More practical tips after the break. Don't go away. Hi again. Today on Great Expectations, we've been looking at how to raise a confident child, and we've learned that we've got to take a long, hard look at our own self-esteem before we even begin with our kiddies. And there are so many practical ways our children can be taught to believe in themselves, encourage them rather than praise them, play with them, make eye contact and lovingly touch your kiddies. But there are some things you really shouldn't do, and our guests can help you with that too. They are educational psychologist Sunita Patel, wellness coach Colleen McClintock-Rudnick, and educational specialist Mommy Metsing, and they're all mums too, so they know exactly what we're talking about. Mommy, to bring it home to our mums at home, how do you identify a child who needs help building their confidence and self-esteem?
You know what? Over dependence. When a child is unable to explore their world, then that's when the mom must just start to be worried. And as a child, you need not to fear the world. As mothers, we expect our children to be able to go out there and take the world. But if a child is fearful such that it hampers their learning or their ability to now go out there, then we need to be worried.
Elaborate on the signs for me. What are we looking out for here?
We're looking for over dependence, we're looking for fearfulness, we're looking for shyness, although it's fine to be shy, but shyness at a certain point, up to a certain point actually, but if it hampers the development of a child, then we need to be very worried. And if a child depends on a mother to always give praise all the time, that's what we need to be worried, to say the world out there, it's a dangerous out there. And we as parents need to say to our kids, go out there and explore the world.
Any other pointers around the house that we should be looking for?
Looking for?
The sort of red flags that we need to be looking out for.
Okay, we need to look for when they are unable to do things for themselves. They always want a parent to be here for them. Then that's when we need to be really worried about that.
Sunita, what are the things we should not do in trying to build confidence and self-esteem?
I think the main thing is never give harsh criticism. You know, that's something that just sits with you. Also to always separate the action from the child. Okay, it's not always you that's naughty, it's what you did that was naughty, okay? Don't always give your child long explanations and and keep questioning them, because the message you're passing on there is that I don't trust you, you know, and if you don't trust them, they're not going to trust themselves. Okay? Never discourage exploration, especially if it's in a safe environment, they're not going to hurt themselves. Let them explore, let them learn, let them figure things out on their own. That's what's going to build that confidence.
And I think we also need to speak about what we spoke about with Lisa very quickly about disciplining and also not letting that fall by the wayside in trying to instill self-esteem and confidence, and how to do that while you discipline and
yes,
not overindulging as well.
Definitely discipline. There needs to be boundaries. A child needs to know that they can't do what they want all the time. There has to be boundaries, and these are the boundaries that are here adhered to. And if you overstep those boundaries, there are consequences. They need to learn that as well.
So don't be a total pushover in the process. And Colleen, I think to leave on a positive note, what are the things you do to raise a confident child with great self-esteem?
Well, I think your children need to have a cheerleader on their side, so that they should experience you as nurturing, as positive, but setting boundaries when that's required. A nice way of actually doing that practically is to have a brag wall. So each child, even if it's on the fridge, and you note down the things that they're doing that's useful, helpful, labeling the skills and teaching them a vocabulary of strengths. And also making time once a month to take each child away for a little date where you can create a journal, create something special for them, write down what's happened in the week, who their friends, what TV shows they're watching.
Show an interest in their lives as well.
Yes, so to really do that, and to help author a language for them around self-esteem.
What would that be?
So this is talking about that they see you appreciating yourself. And if they hear you, being happy about who you are, they're also going to learn that language. So I think self-esteem is really a language. It's around giving these children something to hook onto, to understand that they are good enough and that they're competent and that they're worthy. Those are the pillars of self-esteem.
And I think just a very quick, some top tips on what you can do day to day, every day, in the normal things that happen in your house. So
I think to create a safe climate where there isn't fighting, where there isn't shouting, where things that do go wrong are used as teachable moments, rather.
So it's not the end of the world,
yes,
as we tend to react.
And I think another important thing is asking them sometimes, what do you think? Or what do you need?
That's
how
important.
can I be a better mother to you? And you'll be amazed at the answers they give you.
And it's simple sometimes.
Yes.
So keep it simple.
Get off your phone, Mommy, which was mentioned earlier.
Guilty. And your one top tip for a baby to build confidence and self-esteem with a baby?
With the baby, I think it's around responding to their needs and being there for them and making them feel safe in their environment and making them feel loved and valued.
Okay, so it's never too early to start building self-esteem and confidence in your kiddie. Sunita, Mommy, Colleen, thank you so much for sharing your advice and your experiences with us today. We hope we've helped you with some pointers to raise confident children for our future South Africa. Goodbye, and remember, you're a great mommy.